Well, good day to you. It is February the 24th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name happens to be Gary Willing, and even though I can't see you, I'm glad you're here. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs, and just do a quick plug for some of the websites that might give you some really good background information. If you didn't know this already, if you check out the description portion of the video, it's either down below it or to the side of it, just depends on how you're watching this video. You'll see some links that will take you to websites that will talk about this information in some way. And I always recommend the Share International site for the best background information about Maitreya, how the many miracle signs and UFOs relate to this information, and other things like that. And even since over the last video or so, I had some people ask me questions about my own personal experiences with Maitreya, you can actually read experiences that other people have had with Maitreya and some of these masters that are quite extraordinary. So anyway, hopefully you'll look into it. They're free and they're there for you whenever you want to look into it. If you want to join the discussion, post your questions in the comments section. That's the best thing to do. You can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com, or if you simply just want to let me know what you think, good or bad, post your comment on there as well. Now, I'm going to try to make something out of nothing in this video because there's not a lot for me to go on, but maybe something we can learn as we go through this stuff. Okay, so let's see. Information is wonderful, but the volume is low on most videos. This is coming from NAL 2012, and I do apologize about that. I will, in the future, make sure that the volume is better for you. So thank you very much for the comment. Next comment, Gary Willing is Maitreya. Kala Kala colors? Okay. No, I am not Maitreya. So anyway, if I was Maitreya, and I've actually had somebody comment saying that Donald Trump was Maitreya. So anyway, in both instances, we would be in trouble in very different ways. So anyway, so thankfully for you guys, and even for myself, I am not Maitreya. Maitreya is, of course, his love penetrates the hearts of all that love humanity. So there is some truth to that, I guess, because I do love humanity as much as that humanity ticks me off from time to time, especially when I'm driving in Atlanta traffic. I do love humanity, and that's why I want the best for humanity. That's why I know that we can create peace. The only way to create peace, as Maitreya says, is through the principle of sharing. He says, without sharing, there can be no justice. Without justice, there can be no peace. And without peace, there could be no future. All right. Then I had a religious comment that came my way. Jesus will never return in his human form again. Who said that? The one who will claim to be him is the Antichrist, endowed with the powers that Satan will have given him. All right. Well, thanks for the stern warning on that one. This is a gross misinterpretation of the scriptures in Revelation. And if you look at Revelation through the eyes of fear, it can be very scary and frightful. And you can put meaning on to anybody or anything that you see in your life and have it relate to the end times, as people like to put it. There is no such thing as the end times. There's only the end of the old and the beginning of the new. And that's where we're at right now. And what's frightening for so many people is it's been so familiar for so long. You know, the beliefs that we've all had, the ways that we've been conditioned through life. And if you're somewhat religious oriented in a way, you know, and you perhaps read the Bible but you're very concerned about the future and what it means, you can read into a lot of what's going on and make it mean that we're in the end times. Now, it's not saying that some of the things that are going on today weren't predicted in the Bible, but the way that we interpret it is perhaps not accurate. And I don't mean any disrespect by it. You can believe whatever you want to believe, however you want to believe it. I tend to look at Revelation as a very hopeful book in the Bible, actually. Hoping, you know, the hope for humanity, you know, and the coming together of humanity in a way. But even some of the symbols that were written in the Bible, some of the events that were written in the Bible were just symbols to symbolize the coming time of humanity when we will learn to live together in peace. Now, I listen to this guy. I find him very entertaining. He believes that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. And I can't argue with him. You know what I mean? Based on his biblical knowledge, based on the way that he associates these biblical verses to Donald Trump, but he is still reading into what is going on and I think is mistaken who and what Donald Trump is and what he means for humanity in that way. Donald Trump's not the Antichrist. The Antichrist has already come and gone, and the Antichrist was an energy. It doesn't mean that that energy that influenced the Axis powers to do what they did many decades ago isn't still active and influencing humanity, which is what I think Donald Trump is actually getting his power from, and the influence that he has on his base is coming from that. But it doesn't mean he's the Antichrist. But this guy believes it, and if I was sitting in a room with him, I really can't refute and argue what he said, because he's very knowledgeable of what he's saying. He's just misinterpreting, I think, what is said in the Bible. And I'll give you a good example about Revelation, and this is something that I didn't come up with myself. This is coming up. One of the masters actually interpreted it for us in this way through Benjamin Creme. But in the Bible, there's one of the beasts in the Bible is the prostitute. Sits on the throne, drinks her wine, and all the kings of the world will get drunk on her wine and betray the trust of their peoples, I think is how it's written. I can't remember exactly how it's written, and I don't know the biblical verse, and it doesn't really matter, but it's written in there. Now, nobody ever talks about this person or tries to find this person on YouTube, and looking through OnlyFans to find some prostitute on there that might fit the bill. But the prostitute, according to one of these masters, Ben's master, is not a person, but the stock markets of the world. And the wine that our world leaders get drunk on is the profits that they're making from the markets. The other one that people love to throw in there saying, oh, and this guy even used it as his, interpretation that Donald Trump is the Antichrist, is Donald Trump is claiming that he and he alone can bring about world peace, which is something that they think that the Antichrist will do, right? Or try to say that he'll do. Now, and then they would say, well, Jesus never said that he would bring peace. He says, I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword, to set father against son, mother against daughter, neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother, or something to that effect. And that's not, yes, he did say that, but it was a symbol for the Christ principle that was flowing through Jesus at the time, that divided the people. So, and it's a temporary thing, but because we are together much differently as a humanity with global communications and those kind of things, the Christ is speaking to the whole world and not just one little fragment of the world, uneducated like there was 2,000 years ago. But that same energy, the love nature of the Christ, is what's dividing humanity right now. Now, according to Maitreya, it's not going to be forever, and it does have a positive beneficent effect on humanity, this division. But it's painful to go through it at the time because we can't relate to one another. Our families are being broken apart by these divisions. A lot of it's political, religious, spiritual, racial divisions that we see in our countries and so forth. This is all coming from the love nature of the Christ that's flowing out in tremendous potency at this time. But it will bring humanity together in a way that it couldn't have done had we not spent this time being divided in this way. But to think that humanity can never create peace, because there's a line in the Bible that Jesus says, I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword, is a misinterpretation of what he was saying. Also, I think it discredits the possibility of humanity, because according to Maitreya, within the hearts of all of humanity is the love, the longing for unity, the longing for oneness. And if you experience that oneness for yourself, which is the truth of humanity, you will see it everywhere, and you can't unsee it once you see it. It doesn't mean you live your life like that moment to moment, but you really can't unsee it after that. And when you start to read into Revelation or into the New Testament and so forth like this, you can see that unity that Jesus was talking about in his teachings. But people don't relate it to that anymore. They relate it in I think people are so misinterpreting their own scriptures that that's what's creating the pain and suffering within their own life too. These people who believe that the world is going to end and have such a strong attachment to this cannot be happy people. Because everything that they see is either demonic or coming from God. There's no in between. I can't believe these people are living in peace, But when you see life as one and you see the unity in all things and in all people, you start to have peace within yourself. You can't help but have peace within yourself. And then free yourself to love everybody who doesn't love you, at this time. Does that make sense? So, I don't have a quarrel with what you're saying. You know what I mean? It's, and I don't mean to sound defensive by what you're saying, because people believe what I'm saying is that I'm talking about the Antichrist when I talk about Maitreya, but there are other people who think, Donald Trump is the Antichrist, a good example. Other people have thought Barack Obama is the Antichrist. And as I always like to point out, it's always somebody who has a different political view as you, religious or spiritual view, is the Antichrist. We see the world divided when it really isn't divided. We see each other as separate when we're really not separate. These masters, and Maitreya especially, are coming back to show humanity the truth, that we're one. That we're one family on a basic level, but on a very real and truthful level, we are one being, not separate in any way. Doesn't mean that you can't be you and I can't be me, but we're one being. We make up all of cosmos, just like everything in cosmos is making up cosmos. There is no separation at all. And Maitreya has even said himself, he goes, how did he put it? He said he comes to rid the world of the crime of separation. He affirms that as his purpose. And that's why he is here. So hopefully that helps. Don't know if it will at this moment in time for some of you, but hopefully it'll help in the end. Now this one was interesting based off of a Master Speaks article I put up, The Call to Service. And I got to be honest, James, if you are listening to this, I had no inkling of an idea that it would trigger somebody emotionally in this way. But anyway, so this is, again, the title of this article that Ben's master wrote is The Call to Service. And this is what he said. I don't want to serve. I'm just being honest. I've prayed for faith and I haven't been given it by God. If my soul came here for service, then why doesn't my personality want to serve? The master doesn't have a effing answer for that, does he? The master's a-holes, wow, it's getting pretty bad, abandoned us 100,000 years ago, and now they think they can just show up and tell us what's what. F these tyrants. And by the way, service in fits and starts is still service on some level, and I resent this master's perfectionism. I can't serve. I'm too busy just trying to survive. God of the masters doesn't take care of me. I have these judgmental, arrogant masters. Seriously? Okay, anyway. So let's break this up a little bit. First of all, the simplest way to retort to what you're saying is if you don't feel like serving, don't serve. Nobody's going to make you do anything. If this isn't something that you want or, to do, or you see the need to help other people in some way, then don't do it. Just hang out with yourself all day long and be miserable, of course. You know what I mean? Ben once said that people, when they get to a certain point, they start to, their soul starts to connect with the personality again, and eventually will become at one with the personality, which somebody like at the point of Jesus, Krishnamurti, Helena Blavatsky, Leonardo da Vinci, they were actually they had a soul-infused personality. There was no difference between their personality and their soul. Most of us have a personality, a soul, and a higher self called the monad. And it's eventually the evolution of our becoming is to have an at-one-ment with all three of those. That's what the masters are, they're perfected members of humanity, but yet they still have a ways to go in terms of their own perfection on their level. But from our point of view, they're perfect. But they know nothing but service, because that's what the soul's nature is nothing but service. Now, the personality is selfish, it's greedy, it's afraid, it's living with illusions and glamours that we all have, and the masters aren't trying to tell us what to do. They're just offering a suggestion to help you, really. Because when you serve, you lose sight of who and what you are as an individual self, and you start to see life as it truly is. You see it, you see each other as one. Now, it is true to say that service in fits and starts is still service, but it doesn't do much good because you're not, it's not, there's nothing lasting happens with fits and starts. But if you just do a little bit, and just a little bit, and just a little bit, and just a little bit, it's kind of like the story about the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise always wins the race in the story because it's slow and go. It's not start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And that's what he was talking about. But service, when somebody gets to a point where their soul starts to contact the personality through meditation and so forth, it behooves them. This is what he was saying. It behooves them to find a service, because what can happen is, as you're doing this meditation, and this is not for everybody, this is just for people who are starting to kind of get on the path to becoming a disciple and eventually becoming a master themselves. In the beginning, they very intrigued by the mystical experiences that happen with meditation and so forth, and perhaps have a strong desire to serve, but don't actually serve. And then what happens is that energy that they're receiving from their soul, that love that they're receiving from their soul, kind of goes bad, because it's not supposed to be held on to. It's supposed to be let out into the world through service. And Benjamin Creme said himself, he goes, 99.9% of the time, when somebody is depressed, it's because they are not serving. And they go to the therapist and they pay all sorts of money to try to understand why they're feeling so down and depressed, when all they really need to do is serve. A good example of this was Princess Diana, when she was going through the divorce with Prince Charles. Actually Maitreya actually met with her. I think she knew who he was, actually, according to Ben. I think she knew that was Maitreya, because he was living in London, and they met and he was speaking to him, and that was what he told her. He said, to serve. And she started to serve, and she became active with, I think it was the elimination of landmines. That was something that she was very passionate about. These former wars, war-torn areas all around the world, and, Africa, Eastern Europe, and Asia, and so forth, about creating awareness that there was these latent, dormant landmines, and people would just go walking through a field and they would blow a leg off, and the war had been over for decades, that kind of thing. But that was something that she saw. She also did other things like she really brought the British people together and united them in a way that I think she could do even before she was killed in that way, but especially when she died and the way that she died. She brought the people together in Britain in a way, and even the world to some degree, in a way that was quite extraordinary. But she was depressed, and that's what Maitreya's advice to her was, is to find a form of service. And she did. She did exactly what Maitreya suggested to do, and it changed her life, But to sit in the fence and think this, you obviously know this information to some degree. You obviously believe this information on some level, or you wouldn't get so turned up about it. But you don't have to do anything. The masters aren't going to force you to do anything, Now, the other thing is, and this is something that anybody can do, and it doesn't cost you any money, it doesn't cost you any real time outside of what you're doing already, living your daily life. But he said, I didn't say who he was. The Master DK said in the Alice Bailey books, the greatest form of service that any one of us can do is to get out of the astral planes that we're so focused on. We're all living our life through the solar plexus approach to life, which is astral and emotional. And he said to get out of that and become what's called mentally polarized. That's the greatest service that any one of us can do, And you don't have to do it, you don't have to go do something. You can do it in your busy life, and just try to keep your attention, at the ajna center, which is in between the eyebrows. That's one of the benefits of doing transmission meditation that Ben always talks about, is because you're practicing getting off of the focus of the astral emotional solar plexus, which is the natural form of focus of all of us, 99.9% of the people, and brings it up into the attention of the ajna center, which is the mental center, which is the mental body. And by doing that, you are performing a service for humanity, because you're not thrown from side to side from your emotions like we all are, and the other thing to practice too would be what's core to Maitreya's teachings is going to be honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. And it doesn't cost any time, really, other than just trying to be alert and aware of your own thoughts, so as you live your life, you can do that too. But if you see outside yourself and your heart is open at all, you see that the world is struggling. Why not try to help? You are here for a reason, and you are here, at this time for a reason, James. And as everybody who's listening to this, we don't really realize how important we really are to the world. We live our life and we kind of go through our motions of living life, and then we eventually pass away like we all do. And we miss out on years and years and years of touching people and making a difference in the world and so forth. If you're an artist, or paint or write or compose music, that's a form of service. Service should be a joy. It shouldn't be a drudgery, When I put these videos up, it brings me a tremendous amount of joy to try to answer questions and talk to you guys, listen to what you have to say and so forth, and hopefully, make a difference in your life. I don't know if it does or not, doesn't matter, right? But it's bringing me joy. If it was painful to do, I wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? So you find something that you love to do, whatever that is, James, and do it. And then what the master's saying is, don't just do it and stop. Do it and keep going. And if you keep doing whatever the form of service that you're doing, the masters will start to help you. You might not realize that they're helping you, but they're helping you. They're strengthening your hand in that service. And this goes for anybody. But, hopefully this helps. But anyway, I got to be honest, I did not think that it would trigger somebody emotionally like it did, but I guess it did. But like I said, the simplest answer is, if you don't want to serve, don't serve. The masters aren't going to force you to do anything. They're not tyrants as you claim them to be. But anyway, hope you're doing well, James, and hope you have a good day. All right. Timothy Tilton. I have a big feeling that the day of declaration will happen in 2025. Let Maitreya speak now. All right. Well, thank you for that comment. Now, I'm not trying to beat you down on this comment, so don't take it like that, Tim. But it is important to not be attached to any date, whether that's a day, month, week, or a year, or a decade even. We don't really know. Just as James was accusing these masters of abandoning us 100,000 years ago, which didn't happen, their influence wasn't direct anymore. They moved into more isolated regions of the world, but their influence still went out into the world. They were still teaching humanity. They were still inspiring and guiding humanity, but indirectly through their disciples in the world. Now they're coming back into the world. They're retracing their steps back into the everyday world, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about here. But we don't know how long that will take. You know what I mean? This has never happened before. So how can we gauge it on anything that's ever happened before? So Ben had said early on that he was thinking that Maitreya's the Day of Declaration for Humanity would, where Maitreya would speak to all humanity, alert everybody to the fact that he's here, that is him, and use his name, Maitreya, for the first time, was going to be in 1982. And that came and went. And I'm sure a lot of people thought that Ben was a hoaxer, and didn't know what he was talking about, or was delusional because it came and went. And Ben, this is to James's point about service, Ben didn't stop. He kept going and going and going and going with it. Devoted his whole life, sacrificed his career as an artist, sacrificed his whole life for humanity, to serve humanity in this way, to let people know that Maitreya was here. Believed it 100%. Never got frustrated with the fact that it was taking longer than he was saying, but just kept going and going and going, because he knew there wasn't a time. These masters work without time, because there is no time on their level, right? We are suffering from the illusions of time. So when the masters say, well, it's soon, we think it's a week and a half. That's why I always jokingly say, if Maitreya says, hey, can I borrow $5? I'll pay you back soon. You might not get it for a while. I mean, it's a joke, but it's a joke to kind of prove a point, right? So will it be 2025? It might not. And when we have big feelings about stuff, then we get big disappointments when they don't happen. The best thing to do is just talk about this with people. It might take longer than 2025. Hopefully not, but it might. And to James's point about praying for faith, you can't pray for faith. Even if you're a Christian, you can't pray to God or Jesus for faith. If you're, Muslim, you can't pray to Allah or Muhammad. Nobody can give you faith. You have to have faith within the knowledge of what you know to be true. That's why it's best not to contradict people who are religious. And I kind of skirt around that issue because I'm not trying to beat somebody down for believing what they believe. Because there's always a kernel of truth to what people believe. It's just that and even me with this information, Tim, I don't claim to know it 100% or be 100% correct. You might be right. It might be 2025. I don't know. Hopefully, it'll be great or sooner, right? But, I've been around this information long enough to know that just because I have that thought that feeling doesn't mean it's true. You know what I'm saying? It's best just to keep going and keep talking to people about it. If you have any kind of faith that this might be true faith that, the experience of the intuition, that there's truth to this, information. And this is why a little side note, this is why I always encourage everyone to investigate this information for yourself and not take my word for it. This is for you to look at, to see if it's true for you. And if you do, have faith that what you're saying is what you're feeling, and what you're not feeling, but what your intuition is telling you is true. That's faith, not a belief in faith, as James was wanting, right? That so many Christians claim to have a faith in a belief. Beliefs change, but faith in the truth of who we are as one humanity, the truth that we can create peace, that we should be creating unity, the truth that sharing and sharing alone will bring about that peace. That's faith. That's a faith that nobody can shake. You know what I mean? That's why Ben could come up every single day and work toward the eventual, coming of retracing of the master steps, telling humanity this in the way that he did, without any form of, for the most part, without any kind of not encouragement. What am I trying to say? Without it coming true in his lifetime. All the things that he talked about, the coming together of humanity, the bringing about the principle of sharing, that hasn't happened, and Ben's passed away. But yet he continued to do it up until the day he died, knowing that what he believed and what his experience and his intuition was telling him was true. Quite extraordinary. You don't find people like that, right, in your life on a, every day of the week. They're rare, right? Most people would have given up a long time before Ben gave up. He just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, telling people about it, getting the negative reactions in the way that he did. You know what I mean? Getting back up and doing it again, getting back, and it gets easier every single time that happens, right? And so it's important, like I said, it's important not to get caught up into the feeling of things, and that's when, kind of goes back to what I was telling about service. We are all caught up in our emotions, our feelings. We think they're real, but they're not. The masters will tell you that they're all illusion. That's why we have the dysfunctional world that we have today. People have this feeling that they should be an emperor or the next Jeff Bezos. And I'm being overly dramatic about it, but you get my point. You know what I mean? Everybody is aspiring to be a king or an emperor. They even call themselves that. You know what I mean? When in actuality, we're just people. Not great, not small, just who we are. We don't need to be greater than who we are. We need to be us. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But yet we have this desire to be, a king or rich or what, you know what I mean? Or whatever, or liked or powerful or whatever it happens to be. When the masters will tell you, you're not that, but you're also not nothing. There are people who live their whole life thinking they don't matter. The masters will teach us that that's not true either. Who you are is quite extraordinary, but just as extraordinary as Maitreya, just as extraordinary as Jesus, just as extraordinary as the Buddha, just as extraordinary as Krishna. We are all that extraordinary, no less, but no greater. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we're all on the same playing field. It's just whether we manifest that divinity as they are manifesting that divinity, right? So hopefully that helps. And like I said, I'm not trying to beat you guys down. I always encourage comments, and I don't want you to feel like I'm encouraging comments and then beating you down after that. So, but I love it when you guys do comment and you do ask questions, because it gives us something to talk about and hopefully think about until the next video. So I love you guys. I look forward to more questions and comments in the future. Timothy, thank you for your comment. James, thank you for your comment. And let me take a look and see who the other people were. Mark Hill, thank you for your comment. Is it Gale Gazabu? Thank you for your comment as well. And Ajanad, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And I will make sure that the volume's higher in the next videos. Take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.